Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Midlife Wellness MP podcast. My name's Kim Hefner. I'm a board certified family nurse practitioner, menopause specialist, and host of this podcast. So welcome. Well, today, get ready to dive into the cutting edge world of integrative medicine with a true pioneer in the field. My guest today has been revolutionizing healthcare for over 50 years, developing innovative techniques like prolozone therapy and bringing ozone therapy to the United States. He is a board-certified physician, prolific author, and editor of the Second Opinion newsletter. He is known as the father of ozone therapy in America, and he has helped countless patients overcome chronic pain, boost their energy levels, and tackle supposedly incurable diseases. I am excited to welcome the renowned Dr. Frank Shallenberger to the podcast. Welcome, Dr. Shallenberger, to the podcast. Thank you so much for your time.
Well, thanks for having me, Kim. I appreciate being here.
Yeah. Well, you've been practicing medicine quite a long time. So I am excited to hear all of the changes that have happened over the course of your career, especially when it comes to women's health. What observations have you made that have changed in women's health, especially with the midlife and menopausal women?
So, Kim, I started practicing medicine way back in 1973. And back then, hormone therapy was there, hormone replacement therapy was there. But the difference is number one, it was only there to treat symptoms. Back then, it was not appreciated that replacing your sagging hormones as you get older is going to make you live longer and have a much better quality of life. And I'm going to tell you in a sec about this new NIH study that showed that it also makes you less likely to get just about every disease associated with aging that you can get, including, interestingly enough, breast cancer. But back then, there was all this concern that it's going to create problems, and you only give the woman hormones if she's having a difficult life. And then as soon as she's gone through the whole change thing, you take the hormones away immediately because they're so dangerous. Now, part of the problem back then was that, number one, we didn't have bioidentical hormones. They weren't available. Didn't even know about them. So what we had is synthetic drugs. They're not hormones. They're synthetic drugs that have hormone-like activities and do alleviate hormone deficiency-related symptoms. So that was part of the problem. And so women were immediately taken off these drugs. Now we know from a recent, everything's different now. And since about the late 70s, we can get bioidentical hormones. We can get molecules that are actually identical to what's in the woman's body. So she's not, theoretically, she's not supposed to have any more problems than she had when she was younger and had all those hormones, because they're identical from a molecular standpoint. But there were still, even right through the 90s, and to tell you the truth, even up to today, there is a lot of concern. It's diminishing a lot, but there's always concern, I hear, from not only women, but sometimes even from doctors who should know better, that it's dangerous and you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't replace these hormones. So what I want the audience to learn about is a new NIH study, and it's a fascinating study, really cool study. And this is what they did is the researchers went into the Medicare database. So in that database, it's so cool. They can access almost everything that has to do with women that are over the age of 65 involved in Medicare. So they went in the Medicare database and they got millions and millions of cases in this database. So it's gigantic. And what they did is they looked at women over the age of 65 who were taking hormones of some kind. Now, they could be the synthetic drug hormones. They could be the natural hormones, the bioidenticals. They could be, topical hormones. They could be injectable hormones. They could be in patches. So the whole gamut of hormone therapy. And then they looked at how long these women lived and whether or not they got all these diseases, all the diseases of aging. The results are just astounding. They're really astounding because get this, across the board, no matter, even if you took the synthetic drugs, across the board, no matter how you took it, whether it's transdermal, injectable, whatever, no matter whether they were properly balanced, whatever, there was a benefit across the board.
Wow.
Those women experienced decreased cancer rates, including, interestingly, breast cancer, but they decreased all cancers across the board. They decrease the incidence of cardiovascular disease, osteoporosis, macular degeneration, and dementia. And maybe I'm forgetting something, but whatever they looked at, the women that were on the replacement therapy of any kind, in any way, always did better. Then they broke down the subgroups and they asked the question, well, okay, are some routes better? Are some forms of this replacement therapy better, i.e. is the synthetic better than the bioidentical or vice versa? And what they found was that the highest rate of improvement in women in the sense of living longer and not getting disease was in the bioidentical hormones that were properly balanced. So this is a conclusive study now and should lay to rest, even though there were studies 12 years ago that indicated this. This should absolutely lay to rest the concept that, number one, replacing your hormones is dangerous. As I tell women, will ask me, and I'll tell them, you should be taking these hormones. And, they'll say, but isn't it dangerous? And I say, yeah, it's dangerous to not take them.
That's right.
It's dangerous to not take them. It's dangerous to walk around without any hormones. You're way better off, even if I do it wrong. If I give you the wrong ones in the wrong way, you're still better off.
Right. That's great. What I hear is women are still concerned about the dosing. They are set on the lowest effective dose for the shortest amount of time. When I want to, they're still having some hot flashes, they're still having some symptoms, and I'm like, we need to go up on the dose. Oh no, I don't want to go any higher on the dose. What is your thoughts on the dosing?
Yeah, so, these women are absolutely correct. The art of medicine is all about dosing. Got to get the dose right. There's no one dose in almost anything that's good for everybody. And I don't care whether it's penicillin or hormones, really. The dose is very individual for each person. And the dose is critical. Too much is bad, too little is bad. Mm-hmm. So how do you know what the right dose is? I'll tell you how I do it. I look at blood levels. That helps me. And I look at symptoms. And I look at quality of life. And ideally, I want to get the women's hormones up to the point that they, number one, have no symptoms. Everything's good. And just for the audience, let me just go through the symptoms so they know what I'm talking about. If your hormones are sagging, here's the kind of thing you might experience as a woman. One, cognitive problems, quote, brain fog. Poor memory, can't remember where you put whatever it is you're looking for. So that's pretty common. Mood disturbances, typically anxiety and depression. Sleep disturbances. You're no longer sleeping through the night like you used to as a young woman. It's broken, it's shattered, and you feel like, I'm not really getting very good sleep. Mm-hmm. 3 would be stiffness in the fingers. Stiff hands and fingers, very characteristic of a woman that's not getting enough hormone replacement. There's libido, so the libido could be down. There's vaginal dryness, pain on intercourse, that could be a problem. And there's bladder problems. So you have to get up at night to urinate, whereas you didn't used to have to do that. You feel that you might be leaking, your bladder might be leaking. You might have to urinate a lot during the day. You don't have quite the control with your bladder. So any one of those symptoms, they have to all be gone. You have to not have any of those symptoms. And that's one way to tell. In my mind, that's kind of the best way to tell. So I'm trying to find the lowest dose that's necessary to get rid of all symptoms and to have the blood levels look pretty good.
Okay. When you say
whatever that is fine.
Okay. What in your book, what is the ideal blood levels for estradiol? And do you check estrone as well?
I don't check estrone. I check
Okay.
only estradiol. I want to see it around 60. And you know what, Kim? I'm not married to that number. I
Okay.
like 60. I think 60 is pretty good. I have some women, it's 150, and they're doing great. I have
Okay.
some women that it's going to be lower than 60. But if it starts getting below, say, 30, there's probably a problem.
Okay.
The other thing I look at is progesterone. I want to see that progesterone at 3 or above.
Okay.
And then finally, there's testosterone. An interesting thing about testosterone with women is that you guys thrive on testosterone. There's every now and then I run into a problem. Women can't take testosterone too much. If I give too much testosterone to a woman, one, she might get acne.
Mhm.
Two, she might start losing some head hair coming out in her brush and such. Uh, but shy of that, women do great on testosterone. And I have some women that have testosterone levels up in like the 200s, which is super high. You know,
Yeah.
I think the high level on the blood test is something like 40 or 50.
Mm-hmm.
And they're absolutely thriving. So I leave them on that. That's fine. Because the
Okay.
genetics that are involved in what women do with their hormones and how their hormones are regulated varies significantly. I used to do genetic testing on women,
Okay.
and I don't do it anymore because I know that the variation is great and I know what to do without doing the genetic testing. But some women just absolutely do great on high levels of testosterone. So as long as they aren't having symptoms, I let that go high. The other thing I like to look at, by the way, is DHEA.
Okay. I was
So I
going to ask you
think
about that.
DHEA and melatonin are, I call them like controlling peptides, controlling hormones, such that they make everything a little bit better. Because what we're doing when we give hormones to the women, it's not like their ovaries are doing what their ovaries are used to doing. That's not happening. It's kind of an artificial way of inducing this replacement therapy. And sometimes you can have little problems here with this or that. And I find if you add melatonin and DHEA into this program, you get way fewer of those complications.
Mm. I think that it seems there's a lot of controversy around giving women testosterone still. I think there was just a study came out just recently really praising testosterone for women, yet there's still so many issues for women getting testosterone. Um, I wanted to talk with you specifically testosterone in the research helping to protect against breast cancer. What are your thoughts on that? How would that happen when it's combined with estrogen? How does it actually protect against breast cancer?
Well, let me start off by saying, by the way, recently, within the last year or two, I read an article by the American Endocrinology Society. And in this review article, it was from the society, it was an article that they all agreed on. They said categorically, estrogen is never, testosterone replacement is never indicated in a woman, ever.
Oh,
There's never an indication for
mm,
testosterone therapy in a woman. Doesn't matter what the blood level is, doesn't matter what's going on. That's their position. You never give testosterone to a woman. Now, that's like blatantly wrong, but that's where they're at on that. Um, I'm not aware of the study you just said,
hmm
where apparently testosterone has some kind of protective action against breast cancer. But like I said, that NIH study, it protects against breast cancer. Women are mostly, that's their big fear, is I'm going
Yeah,
to get breast cancer. My mother had breast cancer. My sister had breast cancer. And if I take this estrogen, I'm going to get breast cancer. If I take testosterone, it could convert to estrogen. So I'm going to get
exactly.
breast cancer. And that's just flat out not true anymore.
Okay.
There's no arguing that case anymore.
What about breast density? How does hormone therapy affect breast density? This is a question I get all the time. I can't find too much research on it. So could you just answer that maybe once and for all? How does hormone therapy affect the density of breast?
I can't tell you. I don't know. I haven't seen a
Okay.
study looking at that. And I
Exactly.
don't
There's not.
really check. I don't really care about breast density anyway. Who cares? What's the
Okay.
big deal?
Okay.
If you have a high density or low density, it doesn't really matter. I mean, it doesn't place a woman at greater or lesser risk. So why even
Okay.
check it?
Oh, okay.
The only reason really they want to focus on it, I think, is that it screws up the mammogram.
Yeah.
Other than that, if you're like me and you think mammograms are stupid, um, uh, who cares? It's not an issue for me.
Okay. Do you like thermography?
Not really. I did it for years.
Okay.
Theoretically, it's a good idea, but more often than not, it doesn't. I found that I did it for maybe 10 years, and
Okay.
all different kinds of thermography, not just one form of it. And all it did, I stopped doing it because I'm looking back at it and I'm saying, I can't remember one case where it was actually helpful.
Okay. So how do you feel women should screen for breast cancer?
Yeah, good question. Number one, if they do the hormones and they do the hormones properly and the progesterone levels are high enough, I'm not even worried about it. If they take progesterone and melatonin and maybe some iodine, it's not an issue anymore. So forget it.
Okay.
It doesn't even matter. You're not going to get breast cancer.
Okay.
Um, and in terms of what you should do just to check yourself out, what the studies conclusively show is that women who find the cancer themselves or their husband will find the cancer just by palpation, those are the most aggressive cancers. The
Okay.
ones that the mammograms find, and there's a lot of false negatives, as you know, but the ones the mammograms find are not the most aggressive breast cancers. The most aggressive ones, the ones that really get you and can give you a problem within 6 months, and you're only getting your mammogram like once every 1 or 2 years. The ones that are really bad, the mammogram not even going to help you, even
Yeah.
if it catches it, which it might not. So examine your breasts. And women say, well, how do I know what's there or not? I say, you'll know. If you just in the shower once a month, kind of feel around and know what's there and what's not supposed to be there. If you find something that's not there, go see your doctor, palpate it. At that point, you can do an MRI. I am not into squishing breasts, but you could do an MRI and then you can take it from there.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I agree with that. I agree. MRI is great too. When you mention progesterone, this is another question I get. A lot of women that have had hysterectomies, they're told they don't need progesterone.
Yeah.
They're not given progesterone. It's only there for uterine protection. So could you speak to that a little bit? The benefits beyond uterine protection for progesterone? And then the other question a lot of times I get is, should it be given in a cyclic fashion or a continuous fashion?
Yeah. Okay. So on the first one, how stupid is this? Why, if that's the case, if progesterone is only needed for uterus, okay, why are there progesterone receptors on every single cell in the body?
Including the
Why
blood
does it act
vessels.
on every single cell if it's only good for a certain group of cells? I mean, the whole question is preposterous. It makes
Right.
zero sense at all. And what we know is just from giving progesterone to women that it operates very strongly on the brain, stabilizes mood very well. If a woman has, say, actually has an estrogen positive breast cancer, we can't give her estrogen, but we can give her high doses of progesterone, and that will alleviate a lot of her symptoms. So very high levels of progesterone will have the same sort of clinical result and clinical improvement in women that a low dose of estrogen would have. So why? Because there's receptors all over the place. So let's use them. That doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah.
And then the other question, what was the other question?
Cyclic versus
Oh
continuous
yeah,
menstruation.
yeah. Uh, so I'm not the guy that wants to do cyclic.
Okay.
I'm going to do just the same dose every day. What am I trying to accomplish? I'm trying to prevent disease. That's what I'm trying to do and give quality of life. And you don't have to go cyclical to do that. And,
Okay.
cyclical for the women that are listening to this that don't understand, that means you're going to have periods. You're going to be an 86-year-old woman with periods. That's fine if it was going to do something wonderful for you, but all it is a pain in the butt, and it doesn't do anything better for the women. than just having it a little bit dabbed in there every day.
Another question is, you mentioned DHEA, and this is another thing. The Menopause Society, the Endocrine Society, they don't necessarily recommend women taking DHEA in menopause. So could you just briefly touch on why DHEA would be so beneficial to add to our hormone therapy regimen and what it would do for us and what dose women should be on?
Yeah. So DHEA is great for men and women. It's sort of a mother hormone, and it can get converted to progesterone. It can be, the body can convert it to testosterone, but the body can convert it straight to estradiol. And so those three. So it can ride herd over things. So let's say, well, I'm going to give a straight dose to women. Every day they're going to get the same dose. That's the goal. Well, you know darn well things are going to change. Some days a woman's going to need more of something. You know, if she's going to go for a triathlon or something, obviously she's going to need more of something. If she's doing something else, maybe she's going to need less of something. So I got to give the body a chance to do some regulation of some kind. That regulation can happen through DHEA. That's what I think.
Okay.
So I always put DHEA in there. And I just found over the years, I didn't always do this. But since I've added the DHEA in and the melatonin in, I almost never have to change the dose. In the older days, I would lean heavily on the blood levels and be piddling around with dose here and there. These days, it's rare that I have to change my formula. I have a very standard formula I give every woman. It's rare I have to change it. I might change the dose of it, but the balance of it stays exactly the same. And why does that work in every woman? I think it works a lot because on top of that, I'm helping the woman to regulate that in her own way with DHEA and melatonin.
Okay. I want to talk about melatonin because I've watched some videos that you had on melatonin at the higher doses for like cancer prevention. And then I was reading some studies for breast cancer prevention and melatonin. But people are, it seems, afraid to take melatonin, especially at a higher dose. Could you just speak to what you've discovered about melatonin and how it would help us prevent diseases such as cancer?
About, I want to say 15 years ago, I do a lot of medical writing, so I'm always surfing the library of medicine and seeing what's the latest and such. And I'm going through there, and up pops this article, and basically the gist of the article was this researcher took a bunch of mice that were genetically programmed. So for the audience, researchers can buy mice that are genetically programmed to get just about any disease you want. So you can buy a mouse that's going to get Parkinson's. You can buy a mouse that's going to get Alzheimer's. You can buy a mouse that's going to get macular degeneration, and so forth. But what this article was, the researcher got a bunch of mice that were genetically programmed to get breast cancer, and they divided into a bunch of different groups. One group of mice, they just left them alone. And 100% of them got breast cancer. Then they had several other groups where he gave them progressively higher levels of melatonin. And at some point when he had given enough melatonin to the mice, none of them got breast cancer. And I thought, wow, that's pretty crazy. Because at that point in time, this is something like 15 years ago, I was of the opinion that you only needed small doses of melatonin because the brain only produces a tiny little amount.
Right.
And then there was this word on the block. Nobody ever shown it, but it was the word on the block that high doses are going to screw up the hormone balance and could be a problem and this and that. And so I called the guy up. His name is Russell Ryder. Turns out that Russell Ryder is the premier animal researcher for melatonin in the world.
Wow.
He's a professor at the University of Austin in Texas. And he's published like 5,000 some papers on melatonin. He does it with animals. And so he has a ton of experience with animals. So I asked him about that, and I said, well, okay, what about these high doses? And he taught me something that I don't think most people know, and that is melatonin is not just made in the brain. It's made in every cell in your body.
Wow.
And
That's not known.
massive amounts are made in the intestines. The intestine is the largest producer of melatonin in the human body. So while the brain only requires a little bit, and that has to do with inducing sleep, the whole rest of the body depends on this very potent antioxidant and immune stimulating molecule. And the rest of the intestines produce in the order of 400 milligrams a day throughout the entire day. The melatonin in the brain is related to light-dark cycles, to circadian rhythms. But the melatonin in the intestines, it doesn't care. It's producing it constantly all day long.
Wow.
And so that's one thing he told me. And I thought, wow, that's crazy. And because I didn't know that. I don't think people know that. The other thing he said is that he has done a number of published papers where he would take animals and he would measure their ability to produce melatonin. And then he would give them super high doses for a long time, take it away, and they still produce the same amount. So there's no negative, what we call negative feedback inhibition. There's not, if you give too much, you're not going to shut down your own production. And I happen to know this is true because in my cancer patients, I will give them 400, 500, 600 milligrams spread throughout the entire day. And they might be on that for 6 months. And then we stop that and they're 100% okay. They never run into a problem. So there's no negative feedback inhibition. There's no upper limit to the dose. Yeah, so Ryder told me, he said, you know, there's only about 30 or 40 melatonin researchers in the world. He knows every single one of them. Wow. He said, we've all been trying to find a toxicity level for melatonin, what they call an LD50. We can't find it. We're giving animals 50,000 milligrams a day, month in, month out, no problems. No toxicity, crazier than heck. So a lot of these myths out there are just completely dispelled. So finally, after talking to Ryder a while and he's published a book, actually might be 2 books now, amazing researcher. But by the way, when I talked to him back then, I think he was like 82. You would have thought you were talking to a teenager.
Wow.
His brain was bang, sharp. Here we go. Wow. And I ultimately got to meet him. And sure, he looks like an old guy. He's got the wrinkles and all that stuff. But shy of that, this guy is like a teenager. Wow. And so at some point I asked him, how much melatonin do you take? And he said, I take 180 milligrams a day. Okay. And I said, well, that's a big old whopping amount. Why do you take that? He says, because when you figure out what the mice needed to prevent cancer, that's the dose in human equivalents. It's roughly 1 milligram per pound, I figured out. Okay. Wow. And so these are a lot of myths that are out there about melatonin, 100% untrue. And in fact, about a year or so ago, some guy, and I can't remember his name, but he published a study about the dangers of melatonin. So I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, this doesn't make sense, what this guy is writing. So I call Ryder up and I said, what about this guy? And Ryder unequivocally told me, the guy's a moron. He has no idea what he's talking about. Okay. So, you know, people in the audience need to understand, just because something's published, you know, you better be a little critical of it, because some of this stuff is just complete, utter nonsense. And I don't even know why guys do that without doing the research, but the research is very clearly there. By the way, Ryder did that study with mice with the breast cancer. He's done a whole bunch of studies with mice with other genetically programmed diseases. And so what he's found out, at least in mice, is that giving them a high dose of melatonin, mice that are programmed to get macular degeneration, dementia, cardiovascular disease, osteoporosis, and cancer don't get them. Cancers across the board. Wow. Now, we don't have that information in humans, But we do have a lot of investigative information in humans, where it looks like there's rationale to support that you'll see the same thing in humans. But my thing is, if it does this dramatically to animals, and if there's no downside to it and it's cheap, sign me up.
Right. What about the difference between the sustained release and the immediate release? Does it, are you talking immediate release?
Excuse me.
You're okay.
Ryder he doesn't use sustained release.
Okay.
As far as I know, there's been no studies looking at this.
Okay. And then
I think sustained release sounds fine. I don't really use it.
Okay.
The half-life is roughly 3 to 4 hours. So if you take it every 5 to 6 hours, which is sort of what you need for sleep, for example, you're covered.
Okay. Okay. And then just kind of titrate up as tolerated, I assume.
It's always tolerated.
Okay.
Seriously, you can go out tomorrow and start taking 2,000 milligrams 4 times a day, and you won't notice anything. You might sleep better. I don't know. But
I think
you're not going to have any side effects. Now, let me qualify that, by the way, for reasons that I can theorize on, but I'm not quite clear on. There are some people that get a drug effect from it, and they'll feel like they were drugged. So we do see that. The other one I see is there's certain people out there, it must have to do with how they metabolize it. There's certain people out there, if they take it before bed, they're wired. And they get wired dreams, in which case I just say, okay, take it in the day.
Yeah, actually, if I take more than just a little bit, I feel like I have nightmares.
Yes, so take it during the day then.
Okay, yeah,
that
is.
I'll have women say, I can't take more than 5 milligrams, or this wacky stuff starts happening to me. Well, before I go to bed, I say, fine, take it during the day. You're not sleeping, so you're not going to get nightmares.
Okay,
and,
that's true.
It's pretty rare that somebody will take it during the day and feel drugged. If they take it at night, somehow they feel drugged. It's got to do with the light day cycle, the light dark cycle, the circadian rhythm. It's got to do with that, because you just don't get the problems if you take it in the day.
Wow. I really never even thought about taking it during the day, but I would love the protection and preventing of cancer, which we're all so afraid of. And I definitely, I had a recent breast cancer patient and I recommended it to her. I said, do look into this research on the melatonin, because anything.
You can't go wrong.
Yeah.
It's absolutely benign. Kim, I have done hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of cases over the last 15 years since I learned all about this, with gigantic doses. Other than the certain little minor things I was just mentioning, never see a problem. They do great. Wow. And it's huge for cancer, just huge for cancer. And I think every other disease too.
Yeah. What else are you excited in with anti-aging medicine? I know this is a big focus of your practice. So what other aspects of anti-aging medicine or the latest things that are you excited about?
Well, it's not sort of the latest thing, but I do want to make sure we talk about stem cells.
Oh, yeah.
Stem cells and platelets. Let me write that down. But I guess it was back in the mid-90s. I'm riding my bicycle and I'm free floating. My thinking is just going crazy. And I'm thinking about how as you get older, your mitochondria don't work so well. And you start this process called aging, which basically means decreased function and increased susceptibility to disease. That's what aging is. Decreased function and increased susceptibility to disease. So I'm thinking, as you get older, your mitochondrial function goes down and all this aging stuff starts happening. And just my mind did something crazy. It said, well, what if it's just the opposite? What if your age, because your mitochondria go down? Up until then, the whole theory of aging around mitochondria was you get mitochondrial decay and then you age. And I started thinking, you know what? maybe your mitochondria stop working before they even get decayed.
Mm.
Maybe that comes first. So I thought to myself, okay, it's time to measure mitochondria in my patients. Quick research told me that there's no way to do that. So this is back in the mid-90s. Nobody's measured mitochondrial function. And I thought to myself, this is kind of crazy. If you go to PubMed and plug in mitochondrial function and just about anything, it's all tied to decreased mitochondrial function. And yet you're telling me nobody's measuring that. That's wacky. That's like, nobody's measuring blood pressure. We know blood pressure is an issue, but what if we never measured blood pressure? We wouldn't know there's a problem, would we?
Right.
So I looked into it. Finally, I developed a system using VO2 analysis, which has to do with how much oxygen your body consumes. All that oxygen that we're consuming and processing, it's all done in the mitochondria. So the more oxygen you're consuming, the more mitochondria you have. Now, when the oxygen consume oxygen, they produce carbon dioxide as a byproduct. It turns out the more efficient the mitochondria are, the less carbon dioxide they produce. It's just like a car engine. The more efficient the engine is, the less carbon dioxide it produces.
Yeah.
And so you can go buy a gadget and you put it on like a scuba mask. And as you breathe through this, we put you on a bicycle, an ergometer, and we make you work out harder and harder. It's roughly 15 minutes. And as you're working harder and harder, what you're doing is you're consuming more and more oxygen and producing more and more carbon dioxide. Well, you can see the oxygen consumption go up, 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 up. You can see the carbon dioxide go up, 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 up. But at some point, oxygen starts to tail off and carbon dioxide starts to shoot up. At that particular point, that's your maximum mitochondrial function.
Oh, wow.
So we take that point and analyze it, and we can compare it to databases. These databases have been out for decades. And so I can tell you, okay, you're an 86-year-old woman, and the amount of mitochondria you have in your body and the way they function is the same as the average 36-year-old woman.
Wow.
Or I can tell you you're a 36-year-old woman and your mitochondria are working like an 86-year-old woman's. So we started back in 2004. I published a paper where I did this on men and women in their 30s. All these men and women were quote healthy. They were asymptomatic. They're mostly pretty health conscious type of people. And so we did 50 of them, and we measured their mitochondrial function. Well, it turns out in that group, healthy men and women in their 30s, 30% of them had severe mitochondrial dysfunction.
Wow.
30%. Actually, I'm sorry, it was 12%. 50% of them had mitochondrial dysfunction, but 12% of them had severe mitochondrial dysfunction in their 30s, asymptomatic.
Wow.
Now, if I'm going to ask who's going to get sick in that group, who's going to age rapidly, who's going to get diabetes, who's going to get cancer in this group of 30-year-olds, who do you suppose is going to get that?
That's
going to be the 12%.
Yeah.
Okay. The other half of those people were in great mitochondrial shape. I'm not betting on those people getting sick. But so what this taught me was, and what I've subsequently learned is, the mitochondrial dysfunction goes down early. It's not a late developing thing. It's not like you age and then your mitochondria go bad. Is you age because your mitochondria are going bad starting in your 30s.
Wow.
Now, most people don't notice this. If you're some high level athlete, you're going to get to be in your late 30s and you're going to say, you know what, I'm great, but I can't do what I used to do. And so you'll notice that person will notice that. But normal human beings, we're not going to start noticing until we get to be about 55-ish or so. And in there, we can say, you know what, I can still do everything I used to do, but I don't quite do it as well. They've got mitochondrial dysfunction. So the biggest thing for me with aging is, I don't care how old you are, I want you to do good on my test. So I test 100% of my patients walk in the door.
Okay.
100% of them. And if they test out great, I tell them, when you leave today, you know you're doing something right. Because here's what happens. all these lifestyle things that everybody knows about, how you eat, how you deal with stress, how you sleep, how much sunlight do you get, how much water do you drink, what supplements do you take, what's your diet like, how do you exercise, all of this stuff, or what drugs do you take, what toxicities are you exposed to, all of that stuff, it creates problems by wrecking mitochondria. That's how it creates the problems. So if somebody comes in to see me and I check their mitochondria and it's good, I can tell them you're doing okay. Toxicity is not a big deal. Don't have to worry about the lead or any of that. You don't have to worry about pesticides or your diet, whatever it is. And they may say, hey, by the way, my diet's not all that good. And I say, yeah, but people are genetically different. And you have genetics in your mitochondria separate from your other genetics. And so God blessed you with really good mitochondrial genetics. You can get, at this point in time, you're getting away with your not so good diet. And we can keep, and we want to check a person like that, like every 2 or 3 years, and just monitor the mitochondria. And sure enough, there's going to be a point where this starts to become an issue because of their lifestyle things. But I have people, seriously, I have people in their late 80s that have the mitochondrial function of a 35-year-old.
Wow.
They're not going to get sick, period.
Yeah.
They don't get sick. So that for me is huge with respect to the aging process.
Yeah.
The other thing is that I always want to mention to people, the older group, okay, the over 55 group, is, you know, I'm glad you're feeling good today, but I don't care that much. I'm focusing on how you're going to feel 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now. That's my focus. You're feeling great today. Odds are pretty good. If you're like everybody else, you're not going to be feeling great down the line. So let's focus on down the line. Now, what does that mean? That means we do testing, especially mitochondrial testing, like every 2 years. But the thing that's kind of been a game changer for me recently is proactive stem cell and platelet therapy. So you're giving stem cells. So I'll take somebody like you, who looks like the picture of health, and you probably got great, you know, I'm sure you take great care of yourself, probably got great mitochondrial function. And despite that, I would give you stem cells.
Wow.
And I might infuse platelets into you as well. Now, why would I do that?
Yeah.
Because you're going to look, feel, and function better 5, 10 years from now if you do that than if you don't do that.
Wow. It sounds amazing, but it sounds expensive.
It is. Yeah. It's so if you do this right for a younger person such as yourself, you're probably looking at $6,000 to $7,000 a year.
Wow.
To do that. Now that's not horrible, but you know, it's you know, it's you're spending money on yourself. It's a lot of money, but maybe you feel you're worth it. The other thing that may be a game changer too is this new product called Stem Regen. Have you heard about this?
No.
Stem Regen. Yes. So a fellow by the name of Christian Drapeau, Drapeau, wrote a book called Cracking the Stem Cell Code. Fabulous book. Great read. Gets a little complex in there, I have to say. Some of it's over my head and I never quite figured out. But I've had several conversations with him. He's a brilliant man. And and I won't go through the whole story, but you can read the book, go through the whole story. But basically found out that there's 4 herbs that cause your body to release stem cells. So here's how this thing works, and it's really remarkable. We have all our stem cells in our bone marrow. When something happens in the body, some kind of damage that needs to be repaired, and this is constantly happening, we release stem cells from the bone marrow into the general circulation. Now, those stem cells have certain cell markers on them, so we can count the number of stem cells in your circulation at any one given time. Wow. So what he has been able to do is find 4 herbs. And when you take these herbs and herbal extracts, those number of those stem cells go up within 1 or 2 hours.
Wow. Okay.
Now, what's wild about that is not only do you get more stem cells in your circulation, meaning more repair going on, but this is remarkable. Before your bone marrow will release those stem cells, it has to reproduce them.
Mm.
So if I have a given amount of stem cells in my bone marrow, once it releases a bunch of stem cells, I still have the same amount of stem cells in my bone marrow. It reproduces them before it releases them. So
Oh,
in
wow.
essence, I actually have more stem cells. It's stem cell therapy, but it's a pill, and it's not so bad. It's more like, oh gosh, depending on the dose you take, something like 150, maybe $200 a month.
Okay. Wow.
So that could be a game changer.
So the herbs are in that, what you just told me, that regenerative or what?
Yeah, it's in Stem Regen. I
Okay.
believe if you just Google that or go to stemregen.com, you can learn more about it.
Awesome. Well, say the person doesn't have good mitochondrial function. What are your recommendations?
Yeah. So almost always they're not covering the basics.
Mm.
And almost always they're blindly going through their life thinking, you know what? I don't feel so bad. I don't have cancer. I don't have heart disease. I really don't feel all that bad. Maybe I don't function quite as well as I normally do. They don't realize the jeopardy that they're in until I show them the darn test. But usually it's because their diet is one of the biggest problems we have. And I could tell you a great story that exemplifies this, but one of the biggest problems is too many carbohydrates. Too many carbohydrates. There is a subset of people out there that cannot tolerate carbohydrates. And I could expand more on this, but that's for sure. They need to stop eating carbohydrates and concentrate on eating fat, which goes completely against what we've always been told for the last 50 years. Fat's bad, carbs are good. That may be true for a subset of people, but it's certainly not true for everybody. So the number one problem I've had, and I've seen is, Kim, I've had people come in, seriously, and I check their mitochondrial function. It stinks. It's like 60% of what would be good.
Wow.
I get them off carbs completely, 100%, no carbs. For the next 2 weeks, I retest them. They just doubled their mitochondria output.
Wow.
In 2 weeks.
That's incredible.
Carbs for these people, the analogy I tell them, I said, you know what? In your carport, you've got a diesel car and you've got a gas car. If you put gas in the diesel car, you're going to screw it up. You put diesel in the gas car, you're going to screw it up. And your body's like that. You put carbs in your body, it doesn't handle it. Now, your husband, he might handle carbs just fine. Your next door neighbor, maybe just fine. But you got to stop eating the carbs. So that's a major problem. Another problem that you see is just like lousy diet, just crap. And I've been reflecting on this because what we know is from a study that came out like 3 years ago, where it was a historical study. It's absolutely fascinating. And we probably don't have time to get into the details of this, but basically what the author went back and researched all the historical data and found out that before 1910, there was no heart disease, no macular degeneration, and no Alzheimer's. Zero, nothing.
Wow.
It wasn't in the literature.
That would be amazing now.
That's crazy. So what's changed? One thing for sure that's changed is the fact that today you can eat a crappy diet and think it's a good diet. 50 years ago, you ate a crappy diet. You knew it was a crappy diet. You just didn't care. Nowadays, people think their crappy diet is actually a good diet. It's not. The diets are horrible. They're a disaster. All they eat is processed food. And there's chemicals and crap in there that don't even need to be in there.
Right.
So that's a huge part of it, is getting them off the processed food. I tell my patients that have bad mitochondrial function, no more food that has an ingredients label for you. It's got an ingredients label, you don't need it.
Okay.
So you don't eat those foods. You know, the chips and the rest of it, you don't eat those foods. And I tell you what, you do that for 3 months, come back, let's retest you, see what happens. The other thing is exercise. And people either think that, you know, playing golf is exercise or bowling is exercise. It's not. And one of the nice things about doing these mitochondrial function is, we got you on a ramped bicycle, so I can tell you exactly how you ought to exercise. It's not like a big deal. If you give me about 15, 20 minutes 3 times a week, I'll have you covered. But we need to get that through the skull. Just because you feel good doesn't mean you don't need exercise. You don't wait. People out there, don't wait till you feel crappy and say, I ought to do something about this.
Right.
Wait until you feel like $1,000,000 and then go in and make sure you stay that way. So exercise, diet, what else? And hormones. Hormones are definitely in there. And those are probably the 3 biggest things. Those are foundational. And almost always you can turn around the mitochondria. Now, if that's not happening, then there's certain supplements that we can turn to. Thyroid is in there. So that's a whole nother story, is the story about how the thyroid blood tests are 100% inaccurate for diagnosing age-related hypothyroidism. They're useless. So forget, don't even get them. I get them for a baseline.
Yeah.
But I can't tell you so many times, because when we're doing that test I told you about, the VO2 testing, I get the resting metabolic rate, which is controlled by 3 things. It's controlled by how much sleep you get, the amount of lean body mass you get, and thyroid. So I'm monitoring their sleep. So I do an oximetry on them. If their sleep's okay, I monitor their body composition. If their lean body mass is okay, guess what's left? It's thyroid. So I give them thyroid hormones. They feel better. The test score looks better, but the blood tests don't look so good, especially the TSH is suppressed out. But they feel like $1,000,000. Everything's looking really good. And so what I've learned is the thyroid blood tests, pretty useless unless they're way over the line or way under the line. But the TSH, from a diagnostic perspective, useless. So I don't even do TSH anymore other than to establish a baseline.
Yeah, I can't. So many people come in on levothyroxine and feel no different. They have every sign of hypothyroidism still. And do you like adding in some T3? Do you like?
Yeah. So normally I'll go with, the desiccated.
Okay.
It was like, what, 85% T4 and like 13% T3. And that almost always fixes that.
Yeah. I feel like they feel so much better just having some T3.
Absolutely.
For sure. Well, when it comes to your longevity regimen, what would you share about it? What do you do for yourself?
Every morning, I haul my sorry, tired ass out of bed half an hour earlier than I really want to get out of bed. And I go downstairs in my PJs. You probably don't want to see me. And I'm going to do my exercise thing. I've got a rowing machine down there. I've got a stationary bicycle down there. I've got a bench with a bunch of weights. I've got a power plate by whole body vibration. And I got a whole system that I will work out. Doesn't take much, but for about 15, 20 minutes every morning of my life, with some exceptions, of course, I'm down there doing that. I don't much like it. I'd rather just sleep in bed, if you want to know the truth. But I know I'm looking, again, 5, 10 years ahead. So that's something that I'm pretty darn good about. I don't eat foods with ingredients labels. No, so I don't eat bread. I make my bread. I don't, eat canned stuff if there's an ingredients label on it. I just am not going to eat all the crap that's out there that everybody thinks is okay. Now, there's always exceptions. So if I'm going out for dinner periodically, I know they're going to give me crap. And in that case, I don't care because I'm ready for it. But mostly, I don't eat any crap. I don't eat anything with ingredients labels. I regularly sunbathe. Now, I've got the crappy type 1 skin, so I have to be a little bit careful about how I sunbathe. But I do definitely want to get 15, 20 minutes of sun every day. I'm really good about water. So I'm at minimum, I'm going to drink 1.5 liters of water a day, whether I'm thirsty or not. I have a mix that I put together I make a fruit smoothie every morning. And in that, I dump a scoop of this mix that I made up called Quick Start. Now, what Quick Start powder has in there is immune regulating substances, primarily astragalus.
Okay.
It's got detoxification substances like chlorella and NAC, and it's got some proteins in there, some special amino acids, and it's got all the vitamins and the vitamin C's and all that stuff. So it's sort of like a multivitamins. It's juiced up with some immune related materials and some detoxification materials. So I throw a scoop of that in there. I throw a scoop of 5 collagen peptides, and I throw in a scoop of this product called Perfect Amino, which you may have heard about, but this is an amazing product with just the right amino acid balance. And I'll take that every day. That pretty much covers me. In addition to that, I take thyroid.
Okay.
I take DHEA. I do the stem cells. I do them once a year. It's, cough up $6,000, and I do the stem cells. And then I piddle around with other stuff. I'll go buy some pterostilbene, or I'll buy some astaxanthin. I'll read something about it, and I'll play around with it to kind of ding around with stuff. But what I just described to you is my basic stable stuff that combines lifestyle with some hormone replacement, some supplements, and then guess what? I check my mitochondrial function every year.
Yeah,
and right now I can tell you I'm 78 years old. I have the mitochondrial function that's typical of a 32-year-old man, my height and weight. It's not by accident. I'm pretty sure I wouldn't be that way if I hadn't been doing all those things I told you for at least the last 20 years.
Yeah. Are you a fan of infrared saunas?
Yes. I have several of them. I have the near infrared, which I like a lot, and I have the far infrared, which I like a lot. So yeah, I'll do saunas a lot, especially in the winter. During the summer, it's pretty hot anyway, so I don't really like getting in there. But yeah, I think saunas are fabulous. As you probably know, lots of good studies on saunas and the way it prevents disease, and they definitely upregulate your mitochondria.
Okay. What about the new thing with doing NAD boosters or, IV? Is it NAD? Yeah. How do you feel about those?
So I don't think they really work all that well.
Okay.
In other words, if I have somebody with poor mitochondrial function and I give them one of those like niacinamide or niacin or something like that, odds are pretty good I'm not going to see any change.
Okay.
Really, I'm going to see the change with their lifestyle. Then if you throw that on top, maybe it makes sense to take niacinamide or niacin. The other NAD precursors, the other NAD precursors are way too expensive, and I don't think they're worth it.
Okay.
But I will tell you a great story. So I had a guy that calls me up maybe 3 years ago. He's in Southern Cal, which is, 12 hours away. He says, I'm 40 years old. I've been tired, run down, chronic fatigue since I've been age 20. I'm not employable. I'm on disability. I heard about your mitochondria test. I want to go and check this out because I think something's wrong. I said, yeah, you better get up here. So he shows up maybe 2 months later. He comes in and he sits down. I'm looking at his mitochondrial test. I'm saying, dude, I don't know what's wrong with you, but you have the mitochondrial function of a young person. You're looking great. There's nothing wrong with your mitochondria. And he says, well, that explains why I feel so great. I said, what do you mean you feel great? I just talked to you 2 months ago. I felt like crap. He said, what you don't understand is when I was driving up from San Diego to come and see you, I stopped by a clinic in San Luis Obispo that was there for addictions. And they were giving intravenous NAD every day they were giving 800, 1,200 milligrams of NAD IV over a 6 to 8 hour period every day for 10 days to help people with addiction. And I thought, I'm going to do that because I heard about NAD. So he did that, and that's what happened.
Wow. So it did make a difference.
Absolutely turned his case around. He said, I feel like $1 million. Wow. So that just confirms the fact that NAD is valuable. And there definitely are a subset of people out there. I don't care what you do with them. I have not been able to find a way to bump up their NAD and improve their mitochondrial function shy of giving them some actual NAD. I don't think the topical works very well. So
Okay.
I don't think the pills definitely don't work.
Yeah.
But the nasal spray can work.
Okay.
And certainly sub-Q or IM or IV will work.
What
And it's
about,
really good jump start.
okay. What about, do you know much about using rapamycin for longevity? I know there's
I,
some clinical trials that a lot of people are starting to consider doing it. I mean, I'm not going to lie, I've even considered it. So what are your thoughts?
yeah, I'm going to start that myself, to tell you the truth.
Okay.
The research is compelling.
Okay.
It gets rid of cancer cells, get rid of senescent cells. There's no downside to it. Now you got to be
Okay.
careful about the dose. So I have run into people that got crazy with the dose. There's some people out there that are saying you should take huge doses of rapamycin. Not a good idea.
Okay.
And they've ended up in the hospital. So you what that dose wants to be somewhere between 4 to 6 milligrams once a week.
Okay.
And if it's like anything else, I'm not going to do it constantly. I'm going to go
Okay.
in there for like 3 months, knock out some senescent cells, give myself a break for about a month or two, and then go in and knock some more out. But I think
Okay.
it's a great idea. I don't have any real experience on it, but I have researched it, and I'm pretty convinced that's something we probably ought to all get into.
Yeah, I was pretty excited about it. I've been looking into it and I've been thinking I want to do that because I have a strong family history of cancer. Both my parents died young of
Mhm.
cancer. So I'm anything that
Okay.
can help with that. What about metformin? I feel like that's so controversial for longevity reasons. What do you think about that?
If you can take metformin, and by that, I mean you don't have side effects, basically GI side effects. You don't
Hmm.
have anything wrong with your kidneys.
Hmm.
You maybe monitor your B12 levels.
Hmm.
Um, I don't see a problem with it. There are some people whom I respect in the anti-aging movement that feel very good about taking metformin. I
Hmm.
myself don't take it. I don't prescribe it. But if I have somebody interested in it or wants to try it, I don't have a problem.
Okay. What about low dose naltrexone? Are you a fan of that?
Not prophylactically, but yeah, if you've got cancer for sure, got an
Hmm.
autoimmune condition for sure,
Hmm.
autonomic nervous system kind of conditions, I think it can be real helpful.
Okay. Yeah, I've had some good success with it.
Yeah,
I really like it. And it's so low, it doesn't really interact with other medications. So it's
no,
really great. Um, well, thank you so much for your time. I didn't really get to ask you everything. We kind of got into a lot of different things, which I'm thrilled about because I really think that people have these questions, and I'm so glad that we covered a lot of it. Another thing, real quick, what about GLP-1 agonist? I feel like
Mm.
that's so controversial. But a lot of people are taking it for all the metabolic and cardiovascular protection. But for my women, even if they're pre-diabetic, many of them don't want to take one. So what are your thoughts on those?
They don't want to take it because of what they've heard on the online or
Mm-hmm.
something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, okay. It's an absolute game changer for some people.
Yeah.
But there are definitely a subgroup of people. You probably run into them. We all run into them, and they're doing everything absolutely right, and they can't lose weight.
Mm-hmm.
100%. What's
Yep.
wrong with those people? Obviously, something is wrong somewhere. When you
Yeah.
give those people a GLP-1 agonist, everything is taken care of. So, I mean, it's pretty obvious there's a
Mm-hmm.
subset of people out there that need GLP-1 agonists. Now,
Mm-hmm.
why that is, I'm not quite sure. Is that a genetic thing? Is that a lifestyle thing somehow? Did there be some kind of problem with their genetics and the epigenetics as they've gotten older? There's some evidence to think it might have something to do with the microbiome. But anyway, the fact is, it's a game changer for a lot of people. The side effects that people heard about always have to do with either one, some people just don't tolerate them at
Yeah.
any dose.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty uncommon. And what we always do is you start off with a low dose and you work on up. What you want to do is you want to find the lowest dose that gets the job done. And if you do that, and I always start off with semaglutide because that's the one that is the cheapest.
Yeah.
Easy to do, it's cheap. If they get sick from the semaglutide, which is usually nausea or some kind of GI up the thing, we can always go to one of the other GLP-1 agonists. They're better, but they're a lot more expensive.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the mistake that's made out there, Kim, is that it's so typical of the way our darn medical society works is, oh, look, here's this wonderful peptide. Let's just take a whole bunch of this peptide and not deal anything with lifestyle. Let's forget about mitochondria. Let's forget about all these other things. But if you take that person and you put them on intermittent fasting, get them off the carbs, get their mitochondria regulated, do all these things, kind of what we're talking about, get the thyroid dialed in, get all this stuff, and you give them that GLP-1, they'll need a little bit of dose. They won't need a big dose, and they will just thrive on it. So I love those things. For me, it's been a huge game changer for that subset of people that I do everything to, and that they just can't bust through that finish line.
For me, it's the menopausal women that I care for. I mean, we're doing hormone therapy. We're trying to optimize the thyroid and diet and lifestyle. And I really believe they are trying everything that we talk about. But the belly just won't budge, So
yeah, no, they're great. So you basically put them on the GLP-1. Those people, you're already covering all the other bases. So you put them on the GLP-1, and I tell them to go up to the point where they're losing in the order of maybe a pound every week or two. And I don't go above that. I don't want you losing a lot of weight real pronto. I want you slowly losing. I want you to be regulated. This is not a weight loss thing. It's going to regulate the way your body works, and then you, as a result, you're going to lose weight. But go up to that dose. It's just minimal, and then once you've dropped to the weight that you want, and everything feels good, and your A1C is good, and everything's lovely, then you can start to reduce the dose. Half the people are going to need to do it in some way or shape or form for the rest of their life. That's what I've found. But you could get off it or go down to a minimal dose that is of no consequence, like 0.2, 0.25, something like that.
Yeah.
And just stay on that for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Yeah, no
that's
problem.
I've been lately just offering it to them, like, okay, we've tried this. Do you want to do it? And many, like you in social media and society, they're like, everybody's on one. But when it comes to my patients, they're like, no. I'm like, okay. So, well, what are your 3 or 4 top tips to leave us with for menopausal women?
Menopausal women. Okay. Gosh, top tips. Probably the same as I would say for older men. Get your hormones dialed in. Obviously, for women, that's more of an issue because your hormones drop out suddenly. For us, it's very slow. But get your hormones balanced for sure. Start thinking 5, 10, 20 years ahead. How am I going to be 20 years from now? Do all the things. I wrote a book called Bursting with Energy. Read the darn book and do what it says in there.
Okay.
And this is not rocket science. And then get your mitochondria checked. There are a number of people, if they go to bioenergytesting.com, you can find something like 10, maybe 15 clinics around the country that can do this particular mitochondrial test. And go get your mitochondrial tested. If it's great, fabulous. Stay on your game. If it's not, let's get it great. And don't be happy until your mitochondria are looking youthful.
Well, are you a fan of those mitochondrial supplements and combinations that have like CoQ10, L-carnitine? What do you think about those?
They don't work. It's nonsense. They don't work.
Okay.
They're good in concept, and they're good for you, but they don't bump your mitochondria up.
Okay. Do you take CoQ10?
I do. Yeah. I'll throw one in there a couple of times a week, maybe.
Okay. That's kind of how I am. I don't take the same things every single day.
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
You want to rotate stuff.
Yeah, that's how I am. Well, you've had a really long, successful career. So what achievement or contribution are you most proud of?
Hmm. The mitochondrial test. I think it's a total game changer. It could change the face of medicine if people would just start doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I talk about the mitochondria a lot. I realize it's like foundational. They have to be
Absolutely.
working.
But think of this,
Right.
Kim. We all know blood pressure is a problem,
Mm-hmm.
or potentially a problem.
Mm-hmm.
We all know blood sugars are an issue.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how do we know that? And
That's
how do we know what to do with that?
right.
We measure blood pressure. That's how. We measure blood sugar. That's how. That's
Right.
how we know there are issues. So unless people are measuring mitochondrial function, they're throwing darts in the dark. They have no idea what they're doing. In the same way that somebody walks in your office and you say, you know what? I have this intuitive feeling that you have high blood pressure. So I'm going to put you on all these things to lower your blood pressure. And then the patient comes back and says, well, is my blood pressure lower? And you're going to say, well, since I have no way to measure blood pressure, my intuition is that it's probably fine now.
Right.
This is bogus. This is not
Right.
scientific. You want to measure mitochondrial function.
Right.
So send your patients to get their mitochondrial tested, or buy the unit yourself and test your mitochondria. It's not that hard to do.
Okay.
And it's like absolutely critical. It's an old scientific maxim: what you don't measure never gets handled.
Right. That's so
You got to
true.
measure stuff.
That's right. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you wish I would have?
No, you've done real well here. I'm
Great.
happy to come back and talk to you some more if something else pops up.
Absolutely. I'm so glad we were able to connect finally and everything got working.
Yeah,
And I really
good.
appreciate your time and I appreciate everything you do. And thank you for being here. And what's your website, or how can people learn more about you and what your practice is, and how they can follow you?
A couple things I'll put out. Number one, I write a newsletter. I think I get super good feedback on this newsletter. Been doing it for about 15 years. It's called Second Opinion. So if they Google Second Opinion newsletter, they'll find it and they can sign up for it. And then every month they'll get some information. Plus, there's a whole archive in there they can search. Also, I've written a book called Bursting with Energy. Really, everybody ought to read that. It's covering the basics, and it gives you, step by step what you can do. And then of course, they can go to my website if they have clinical issues and they want to learn more. So that's it's real easy, antiagingmedicine.com, antiagingmedicine.com. They can learn more there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And it's been great talking with you.
Okay. You're welcome, Kim. Have a great day.
Thank you.